She is allowing us to stay unmuted as long as we behave.
That's right.
So, because she wants to hear the snarky comments. No, she wants to hear questions. Go ahead and ask.
And comments.
And comments. And I guess that's it. Take it away,
Yeah.
Loretta.
And that, you know, I got some information here for you, but yeah, I want you to jump in. If you have a question, you're going to forget about it by the end. So feel free to maybe raise your hand if, you know, I won't be able to see you. So maybe if you can raise your hand, somebody else can say, so-and-so has a question, and then we'll do it that way. How about that?
Sounds good.
Sound good?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So.
And please, if you have a question, say who you are so we can find you.
Right. So why do we want to learn about, talk about, think about design? Well, I can think of a couple of good, strong reasons for this group I'm thinking about in particular. First of all, it's to build your skill set. You know, you need to know what a hammer does in order to use a hammer correctly. And design information is no different from that. You need to understand how different aspects of visual language operate so that you can use them in your work. Also, it's a reminder of what you already know. Most of us learn this stuff at some point way back in time, but you forget about it when you're making artistic decisions. And we know that making intentional choices is better than just going on automatic pilot. And thirdly, it's to build your vocabulary. You need to have the right words when you're communicating with people, whether it's with colleagues, other artists, you're communicating with customers, you're having a critique, or even when you're talking to yourself about your work. You need to have the vocabulary so that you can describe what you're trying to do effectively. Okay, so I sent you a handout last night. Did anybody look at it?
Yes.
Okay, did anybody print it out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So just a little, you know, information to get us started. Their design is broken down into principles and elements. Principles are principles. They're the big chunks of information that you want to communicate when you make art. And you see them on the page. Those are you'll see these things parsed differently in different textbooks that you might look at, but these are the ones that I included in my book because I think that they're the core group. And I've given you a little like mnemonic device, a little cute little memory thing to help you remember. And you say to yourself, what's the difference between proportion and scale? Oh yeah, one has to do with the body and one has to do with the parts of a thing. Okay? And then, so they're the big building block. This is the important stuff, the big picture stuff. And then the elements are the tools that we use to make those big picture things work, operate. So you use color, texture, and pattern to create unity, balance, and movement. That's pretty straightforward, right? Everybody say yes.
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 Okay. I want to make sure you're still breathing out there.
You can't see us in the sidebar.
Put on your best active listener face.
There you go. I can't see you guys, so it's
I think you can create a sidebar with just
not on an
faces.
iPad. I only get 4 pieces.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. So now balance is one of what I call the big 3 principles. Balance exists in almost every piece of art. Unity and movement, by the way, are the other 2. But balance is what we're going to talk about today, and the 4 different types of balance. So what is the balance principle? Well, in design, it refers to the perception of equilibrium. So it's not the actual weight of a piece of jewelry, it's the perceived weight of a piece of jewelry. And each part of what we do has a different perceived weight. So for example, bright things are heavier than grayed out light things. and you have to balance that off. Highly textured pieces are heavier than smooth pieces, and you have to be aware of the weight of things in order to get your balance right. And so your aim when you're designing is to find the most pleasing composition by equalizing the various parts of the design in different ways. Okay, so now I practiced this. Let's see if it works. Share content, photos. This just takes a second. This will be the slideshow, which will show you examples of each type of balance. And a quiz at the end.
Whoops.
Okay. So balance as a graphic, as an icon or an avatar for balance, we use a seesaw because balance is about equalizing the weight on either side of an axis. The first kind of balance that I'm going to talk to you about is symmetry, and that's what this little graphic shows you. Equal compositional elements arranged in the same manner on either side of an axis, either vertical or horizontal. Simple, straightforward, right?
Yep.
People talk about bilateral symmetry. You'll hear that phrase bandied about. That's like a butterfly. That's a mirror image. That's exactly the same on one side of the axis as the other. But symmetry just means they're the same. They may not be exactly, but they're the same. Okay. Here we have a pendant by Lin Yor, which is symmetrical on a vertical axis. Symmetry conveys a sense of order, of rationality and permanence. It's easy to look at. You take in the information, in a very easy, straightforward way. It's comfortable, stable, and restful. And we certainly get that from this piece, right? Women like symmetrical jewelry. It's easy to wear. It makes for great accessories because our bodies are essentially symmetrical. So it feels natural for us to wear it. Now I know you're going to say, wait a minute, those beads on the left aren't the same as those beads on the right.
That's right. I was gonna say that.
You were going to say that, I know. The question is, does the difference change the balance? And the answer is no. All of the patterning, the colors and the lines and the shapes, they're not different from one side to the other. They really are the same weight. There's a little bit of difference in the upper left bead, but not enough for you to say that this is not a symmetrical necklace. It is. And a very pretty one. And this is Laurel's work.
Oh,
I like it.
I know, right?
it's different
It is.
from Laurel's.
Symmetry doesn't mean boring or old-fashioned. I call it old lady jewelry. It doesn't mean that. If you keep your ideas fresh and contemporary, the work will be fresh and contemporary. And remember all the good parts, the stability, the balance, that feeling of a natural fit on the body. Symmetry is good. We shouldn't, I never like people to downplay symmetry because it's a good thing in jewelry. And this, of course, is the lovely and talented Helen Briel. Okay, the second kind of balance is actually the most common kind of balance in contemporary jewelry design. It's called modified symmetry. This allows for a little more variety across that central axis, but still you're dealing with stuff that's pretty much the same on each side. I'll look at what we got here. Now, you're probably going to say, well, if it's symmetrical, shouldn't those pieces be facing each other around? But no, it's the same design element repeated again and again and again. And it's balanced once again across that center piece right at the base of your neck. And it's very well weighted with the heaviest piece, the dark black piece, in the center. So the pieces on the side get a little lighter as it goes up around the neck, except for the red one. It's not enough to throw the whole balance off, but it's enough to create variety and interest and make for a much more interesting piece of jewelry. That's Libby Mills. Thank you, Libby. I love this piece.
I do too. That's nice, Libby.
I forgot about
That's really good. Okay. Now this piece is obviously very symmetrical, right down the center and divided into quadrants. If this is Shelley's piece, if Shelley had done this piece in, say, just red and blue with the same repeated little motifs, it would have been very, it would have been beautiful. It would have been stable. It would have been a great accessory, but geez, it wouldn't have had all this interest and curiosity and what is she doing and what, you know, you keep finding yourself looking at different parts of it just because. Mm-hmm. But she has kept it in that symmetrical realm. So I call this modified symmetry. Comment, questions, anybody? Breathe.
I love that one.
Yeah.
Great, isn't it?
Except I kept trying to read the words and there aren't words.
There are no words. There are no words. Okay. So now you're going to say, now wait a minute, Loretta, that is asymmetrical. But if you notice, Maggie's beautiful. This is your daughter, right, Mag?
Yep.
She's there?
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
My
that's-
daughter. Yep.
Yeah. So you notice how right down the center of her throat, that necklace virtually divides in half.
Yep.
That's a big part of it. There are two elements, swirly elements on each side. And the fact that the color is so homogeneous and the texture is overall, it's the same thing repeated again and again and again. That's why I put this in the realm of modified symmetry. Now, if the purple tendril were striped or polka dotted or a really bright color from another, you know, universe, then you would say this was asymmetrical. These things aren't written in stone. It's not like, you know, it's not all cut and dry. There's some sloppiness about it. But once you understand how these principles work, you'll be able to make a choice like this and know that it does work. It won't just happen on it. You'll do it intentionally and you'll do it because you know it's a good thing to do. It's okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. Number 3 is radial symmetry. Once again, another variation on symmetry, and this is to be divided in at least 2 axes at the same time. If you had just vertical and horizontal, you'd have something like a Maltese cross, an iron cross. When you add the diagonals, you get the snowflake, the mandala, blah, blah, blah. But as you noticed, the design is constructed, the balance is constructed around a central point and not an axis. Like this. Like this beautiful thing. So you see how stable and unified the design is when all roads lead to the center, right? Here we have two more, not the top piece, but the other two are radial. The other 2 beads are radial balance. Radial balance creates a strong center of gravity. And you can feel when you have radial balance, you can get the feeling that you're being sucked into a black hole. Well, Sarah's so smart that when she was doing her kaleidoscope cane, she realized that. And so she made sure that the bright red was at the outside edges because that pulls you out of the black hole of the center. So you want to make sure when you're working in radial balance that you've got some interest that pulls you away from that center of gravity, because otherwise there's just no movement or interest in what you're doing. Or another thing you can do is to make your radial balance more organic. But this is Bonnie Bischoff. And what she did that was so smart here was she made this large center that's soft and it doesn't have a lot of gravitational pull in and of itself. The fact that all the leaves point to it, they suddenly get stopped by the big shape. And that makes it much easier for us to live with. We don't feel like we're drawn into the vortex. It's a more natural kind of radial shape. Nothing? Guys are quiet.
We're
Okay,
listening.
good. So how do we perceive equilibrium when all the parts are different? Asymmetry is, you know, the most interesting, the most unique, the most personal kind of design. It's also the hardest, but it requires only that you understand how the parts work so that you can balance them, and a conscious, you know, working of those parts. For example, on the seesaw, one large element weighs as much visually as 3 little ones. As we said before, dark things are heavier than light things, textured things are heavier than smooth things, and you have to adjust the size of those things and the position of those things in order to get stuff to balance.
That's neat.
Okay, this is Phyllis. And as I just
Ooh,
said, you
like
can
that.
see that the little dark leaf on top is the same visual weight as that large lavender leaf underneath, because black is dense, it pulls you in, and light colors are lighter, they're just lighter. The other thing that she's done here is the little dots. All the little dots in the 2 bottom leaves balance off the big 2 copper dots in the front. Can you see how that is?
Mhm.
Now, one of the things that we do with asymmetry to make it work is to use diagonals instead of vertical and horizontal axes. And she also made use of that here. It's very pretty. Or, this is Christine, you can use underlying geometry. If I say underlying geometry, do you see the X that Christine has used as an underlying framework for this piece? The large diagonal vertical upwards to the right and the large diagonal vertical upwards to the left. That underlying X is symmetrical and therefore very stable. And it helps to keep everything from getting out of control in this piece. She's also used one of the heaviest colors, which is bright red. All those little circles facing down to, well, 5 o'clock on the analog clock, balance off the little tendrils, which are light, going up to the right. That's the kind of thing you have to do if you want to do asymmetry. And here we have Dawn. And Dawn really knows what she's doing. and she's not afraid. She is unafraid. Here are some of the things that Dawn has done. Small, highly patterned, high contrasty areas are balanced against broad, soft colors. All those little lines work to balance that big central Skinner blend. Do you see how much more active those little areas are with the lines? That's what makes them heavier. You spend more time looking at them. It takes more time to ingest the information. Then she has the little doodads off up on the left, the little 3 metal hairs. And those are balanced by the 6 little ones, the red ones and the creamy ones on the bottom right. It takes 6 little creamy polymer pieces to balance 3 metal pieces. Part of that is because our brain knows that there's a weight difference. And part of it is the shine, part of it is the size. All those things come into play here. It takes some work to balance a piece like this, but Dawn did a very good job. So go ahead. Nobody? Okay. So that's the 4 kinds of balance. I wanted to just leave you with this idea. And if you start with symmetry, you're starting with unity. And then your job is to make some variety out of the unity. But if you start with asymmetry, you're really choosing variety. And then your job is to create unity out of all the disparate parts. Pretty good, huh?
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Cool.
Now comes the quiz to see if you really
That's
dozed
great.
off. Now you tell me what kind of balance this is.
Symmetry.
Asymmetry.
You're gonna have to speak up.
Asymmetry.
Yes,
Asymmetry, yeah.
even though you might say, but wait a minute, it's in a rectangle, it's a symmetrical shape, but what's happening inside is not symmetrical. Yeah, but there's 4 dots right down the center. Yeah, but there's a big, huge diagonal, and there's the 2 backgrounds which are creating tension, balance tension. That's good. Laura Tabachman.
Slight asymmetry.
I think it's symmetrical.
Symmetrical.
It's modified symmetry. Now, I chose this one purposefully because it is symmetrical in terms of like there's 2 small ones, 2 big ones, and the 2 in the center.
But
Imagine if they were the same. If the 2 little ones on top were the same, the 2 bigger ones in the middle were the same, and the top and the bottom were the same.
It'd be boring.
How much more interest does she get by varying the patterns that the palette is very controlled.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing that helps hold it all together. But imagine if the patterns were all the same in a symmetrical way. It wouldn't be quite as interesting,
No.
right?
Pedestrian, yeah.
Number 3. First of all, do you know who this is?
Yes.
Carol.
It's Carol.
Which Carol?
Carol Blackburn.
Symmetry.
When you want
Symmetrical
to,
all the way.
This is
It's
symmetry.
improved.
This is
It's
symmetry.
impeccable.
mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. So you can see how the patterns are divided in the middle. They're divided, they're mirror images as you go around. The repetition gives them a sense of, I think it makes them both classic and contemporary. I think they're both, which is really kind of great because it means they'll last forever, right?
Yeah.
Okay, one more.
Loretta's
Symmetry.
Yeah, it's mine.
Isn't it asymmetry?
asymmetrical all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not all the way.
No. Some of the way.
It's radial.
Visually
it's
asymmetrical.
radial and it's asymmetrical. So I threw this in at the end because this is the trick question, which my son thinks was mean. But it shows you that once you understand how to use the tool, you can change it up. You can make things different. It doesn't have to fit into a tidy little box. You can make
But
it what
isn't
you want. Huh?
Isn't it a circle, a tidy little box?
Well, the form of it is a tidy little box, but what I've done with the design is inside the form is to really change things up a bit, I think. Anyway, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop the slideshow. What? Go ahead.
That little green piece in the center
Uh-huh.
finishes it.
Off at the bottom right, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's the position. Since all the little eggs, I call them, because it's called a bird's nest, this piece. The little eggs are all essentially the same shape and size. The only way to get it to pull is by pulling it away, by taking the position and moving it out of the grouping. And then you get the tension set up from the center of the bird's nest to the egg that's on the outside. So I'll stop the slideshow now. Yes? Okay. And now we can talk about it if we got any time left. Yeah, look, half an hour, not bad.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I loved your book, but this is great. Talk about it.
I read I was doing research on symmetry and asymmetry, and I read something like if a woman wants to find a husband, be the father of their kids, they look for symmetry in the face. If they want to have an affair, they look for asymmetry in the face.
Good to know.
What sort of
I like
research
that.
has been done on this?
Yeah,
Right.
really.
Well, you know, in Western cultures, symmetry is supposedly the standard of beauty. Excuse me.
Stability.
Yeah, there's something about the calmness of it all, the fact that it's predictable and you know, all that sort of thing that makes symmetry our standard for beauty. But yeah, not so much.
Yeah, asymmetrical is more edgy.
Yeah, it's more unique, it's more personal, and it's more of what you would call a statement piece. Would be you would think of that as being symmetrical, but but there are people working in symmetrical jewelry that are doing a hell of a job out there of
Oh
making
yeah.
spectacular pieces.
In Japan, when something is asymmetrical in someone's face, like they've got a twisted tooth or a mole, they
Right.
call it a charm point.
Oh,
I think
how
that
about
sort of
that?
weighs into that asymmetry that you were saying, and maybe the affair. I'm not sure.
I guess I have wabi-sabi teeth.
Me too.
Well,
charming.
I was asking a painter, a friend of ours who's a painter, and he teaches, I don't know, Unified Arts in Minnesota. And anyway, I was looking at our wall pieces because I re-examined a lot of design when I was doing them. And the interesting thing he said to me is like, and I think this comes back to the symmetry, is like, if it's something that when you look at it, you can see it once and then you're kind of done seeing it, like that has less interest than something that leads your eye around. Or
Right,
leaves
that's
a
movement.
question, leaves something open for you.
That's
Yeah.
He's telling you a story.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
principle of movement. That's movement more than symmetry. With
Yeah.
movement,
And
you're actually manipulating the viewer's visual path.
Yeah. It's also sometimes I think image is so simple and so known that you're just like I have a piece that has a fox that's sort of hidden in kale, but he said, well, once you see it, you can never unsee it.
Yeah.
But then you're sort of done with it. And I was like, oh, it did not occur to me. But I think of that on a jewelry piece. Like we always joke about it with like the earrings, like we've been making them flip. They're like these, actually, it's opposite. And I'm like, yeah, you know, you keep looking, you know, back and forth.
Is it the same? Is it not?
Yeah, you know, and I think that's kind of fun, you know, to make you keep
Yeah.
looking at things differently.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, I think that if an artist hasn't put much thought into a piece, well, you quickly, you know, you see it quickly, and then you got all the message at once. But if an artist put in a lot of thinking into the piece, it takes the viewer time to actually discover it, uncover it, find new relationships. And so all the time the artist spends making the piece, that translates into more interest for the viewer.
Well, it's like the difference between pop music and jazz.
Yeah.
You know, there's a different point to making pop music. It's got a different purpose. So, you know, the smiley face is very different from a Picasso, you know, and it's not just about the symmetry or the way that the thing was designed. It's about the purpose of the thing.
Yeah.
Loretta, this is TJ. I have a question for you. When you start a jewelry piece, what is your go-to state of mind? Do you think of color? Do you think of shape? What's generally the first thing that comes to mind for you? I'm just curious.
Oh, for me, it always starts with color. It always, always, always starts with color. Either I've been somewhere and had a color experience, you know, I always say, you know, like Cape Cod in the morning, there's fog on the beach, and all the colors are very grayed down and soft, and there's a real mood that sets that even now when I think about it makes my hair stand up. And so that kind of, it's color relationships that that will inspire me. And then I start to think about, well, I always start to think about how would I express this in jewelry, because that's my medium. Jewelry is my medium, but the inspiration is always color.
What about you, Christine?
It's always about the material, and I work mostly with polymer. I think metal is an aside for me, but I work mostly with polymer. And the way the polymer looks, the appearance of it, changing the appearance of it to personalize it is where I start. If the material has no personality, then I'll go back to the drawing board. And for instance, the choice between translucency and opacity, that's what I mean by the material. Sure. When do you decide to use translucent clay? When do you decide to use solid clay? So it always starts there. And I like to create contrast, because through contrast, I make the viewer appreciate the quality of the material. So it's an internal process. I always start with an internal process, except for the brooch that
I just showed, of course.
I had just moved to Brittany, and I'm surrounded by slate. It's again the material. Yeah, and so yeah. Well, it's always about the material.
Yeah, I find in my travels that artists do have a couple of go-to things. They have a couple of things that they really, really like, and always go back to. And so, and for me, it's color and balance. Those are the two things that that really trip my trigger, get my motor running. And even when I try to break out of of my mold and do something different, I end up going back in terms of my process to that same thing. And I find that a lot of artists, they feel the same way about it. Whatever their thing is, that's where they keep going back to it.
It's so interesting. I love it. You can kind of see now that you've both said that out loud. When you look at your pieces, both of your pieces, you can totally see what your inspiration is. Now that you've said it out loud, I can confirm that that is true. And I love that. I love your ideas. I love how you think about that. It makes me want to think more to find my way, because it's haphazard. I feel like when I'm creating, it's just a feeling that I have inside, and I'm trying to communicate it, but it's not just one thing that I always go to. It's not just color or material. It's just, I don't know what it is for me. I need to figure it out.
You have to go to the earth thing. Okay, can I ask you a question, Loretta? Why is color so important to you?
I live in color. I mean, color's what's important to me. I'm not, the people who get to our age and you say to them, God, did you see that sunset last night? And they go, oh yeah, it was nice. I mean, I get as, crazy about I stopped one time and stared at a puddle that had some oil in it for about 20 minutes and wrote down every color that I saw. It is the way I am in the world.
All right, so for Loretta, the earthing is color. For me, material is my way of connecting with the physical world. It gets me to look at stone and understand it. It gets me to buy powders and I feel grounded in that. So my earthing is this connection to earth. And so TJ, if you're wondering what your interest should be, because you have so many, one way of resolving the problem, because we can butterfly to everything we see, is to ask yourself what's most important in your search as being an artist. What is it you're looking for? because I don't think that the purpose of being an artist is to be an artist.
No.
The purpose of being an artist is to connect with something.
What
Well,
floats your
for me
boat?
personally, it's generally to communicate in a way that can be secretive sometimes. And I know that probably doesn't make any sense, but my words are not the best. I'm not the most articulate person, but if someone wants me to make a piece for them because they've just lost someone, it's very emotional for me. And it's a feeling, and I can't put words to it. It's not color, it's not material. It's just an emotion that I'm trying to bring out of that piece. And so, but it'll be something for me to dive deeper into and just kind of discover more myself.
Fortunately, you're trying to make art, and art is a nonverbal language. Art is communicating non-verbally. And you know, I happen to know of a really good book
On sale.
that might help you figure this out.
You know,
But so you're
Write that book down.
can I,
Go ahead,
can I
Cynthia.
jump in for a minute?
Yeah.
I realize as I'm sitting here that it's emotion that helps me pick out art. I look for emotion in art. And when TJ, you're all about, I mean, this is my take on it, but TJ, you have got lots of secrets in your little hearts within hearts within hearts, you know, and that, I mean, it just tells me that the reason I do what I do is because I see emotion in people.
Yes, yes, yes.
And a couple of times I've been stunned because I'll say, what happened to you, to someone? And they'll say, how did you know? How did you know my mother died? Or how did you know? You know, so yeah. So it's very clarifying. Thank you.
Can we also call it the soul of the piece? People have said you can see your soul in the piece.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But then, Emily,
That's
think
a
about
scary
the
thought.
Bauhaus. Think about, you know, Mondrian. There are artists who are just as intellectual as there are the ones who create, well, Cynthia would like the Fauves and I would like the Impressionists. You know, I'm about the visual, the colors, how they react to each other. And if you're about the emotion, maybe you are more attracted to abstract expressionists. But for everybody, there's a place. There's a place for everybody. But you do have to do the personal archaeology to find out what it is that you're about.
So when people look at my work, the first thing they're going to see my soul and they're going to think chocolate.
Such a wise guy. You're all about puzzles.
Truly.
You're all about puzzles.
The
aren't you?
puzzles,
T-shirts.
Solving the
T-shirts.
puzzle, not making it.
Loretta, I love
Well,
the phrase
I think-
personal archaeology. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what it is. I always say art is a self-directed journey. Some of us, you know, it's too easy to look at what somebody else does and go, oh, I love that. I wish I could. Oh, I should. Oh, you know, that kind of crap. But let that other person do what they do. You do what moves you to communicate with the world.
Right. Yep. Well said.
What's the name of your book? Serious, I really want to look it up. I know you have one, I just don't know the name.
It's called Contemporary, what is it called? Mastering Contemporary Jewelry Design.
Hold it up, somebody.
Has anybody got it on them?
Mine's downstairs.
I can grab mine.
Another room.
Okay. I don't know where mine is.
I'll add it to the group. I'll add it to the what's new too.
There it is.
It's a gorgeous book.
There it is.
Yep.
Really.
Yeah.
That's Loretta's book.
On my list.
Yep.
Thank
I don't
you.
have to write that down.
It's gorgeous.
Loretta, this
Yeah, it is beautiful.
is Maureen. What I loved about your presentation is how you highlighted so many people, and you have such a warm way of applauding what it is that person did. It was very well received by me, and I'm guess everybody
Thank
else.
you.
I love
Yes.
When my son was a teenager, he called me Mrs. Enthusiasm. It's stuck.
That is great.
Well, that's all I got. If you don't have any questions or any more, I mean, I could talk about this all day, but we got other things to do.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Very
Awesome.
good.
That was
Thank
really
you.
good.
Thank
Laura.
you.
That was super. Thank you.
Lovely.
Mon plaisir.
Something about her ear?
You're really useless, Julie, aren't you?
I was trying to remember
think
what
it
you
was
said to me
Brazier.
that I wanted to get on a t-shirt. Something about pretending to be smart or something. I don't know.
Oh, but we adore you.
So we're early.
Oh,
Any ideas what we should do next?
Workout rooms.
Stretch.
What's your
Maybe
t-shirt
get up
say,
and
Julie?
stretch.
Well, I always have
Oh, joke.
Sarah's joke.
Oh yeah. All
oh
right.
yeah.
For your
ahead.
entertainment, we're going to go back in time.
I'm going to stop the recording, however.
Wear a mask, yes. It's not orange. Orange isn't a good color for me. No, I don't. Yeah, but we're required to wear a mask. So that's fun. For 8 hours a day.
You've gotten used
Yeah.
to that? That's a long time.
It is a long time.
I can't stand it just to go to the grocery store and back. I'm like, can't wait to get out of that thing.
Yes, I love ripping it off after
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And doesn't it get sort of wet and grody inside?
Oh, yeah, especially if you sneeze, it's not good.
Come on.
You get to live with that the rest of the day.
You learn to bring multiples.
I was gonna say, have a change.
Yeah.
Cynthia, we're still recording. Do we want to be recording this?
No, I'm not.
Ooh.
I stopped.
No, it's
Oh, good blackmail material.
Oh, I hope my